All right, it is my pleasure to call to order the meeting tonight, Wednesday, September 6th. It is 6, thereabouts. As always, item number 1 is an information exchange. We'll dive right in with an update on the Comprehensive Plan RFP. I believe this is mine to take for the update. So the Comprehensive Plan RFP was released a couple weeks ago at this point. I don't remember the exact, well, it was probably more than that, month.
Yeah, it was opened on July 26th and it closed on August 23rd.
Okay, excellent. So the August 23rd was the closing date. We got 4 applications from local firms, some of which we've worked with before. Principal Group, North Star Planning is one that some of you may remember from a couple years ago. They helped us with something. I was just thinking about this and now it's escaping me. One in Yarmouth called Viewshed, and there's one.
GPCOG maybe?
And GPCOG, yes. So those are the 4. We are going through them. There will be an interview process that happens next week. We will be, I guess, or are looking for a couple of members of this board and a couple of members of the project review board who are interested in attending those interviews. There will be obviously 4 of them. I think it makes sense to just interview everybody, given that there are 4. They're all strong applications from reputable firms that we know already. So we'd like to interview all of them. The interviews will be 60 minutes. They are not yet scheduled just because we know it's a commitment. So Caroline and I are going to work together to try to schedule this tomorrow. So if anybody is interested, you can either say yes right now, or you can think about it for a few minutes and come talk to us after the meeting.
You have to do all 4, right?
Yes, exactly. Yes. So you have to do all 4. You cannot pick and choose.
I mean, if I could make it work, I'm certainly interested in seeing the responses.
They are public, I believe, the applications themselves, so that you are free to go through those. I don't know where you can find them. We can figure that out.
Can somebody
But
tell me
yeah.
where to find them?
I also don't know where to find them. I had not been informed that they,
I think they're public.
but I will check on it.
They will become public at some point. I don't know exactly how that
Well,
process
before
works.
the
Sharon, do you know?
selection process is made, I'd like to think we have a chance to look at them
Yep.
and make a comment.
Yep.
It does matter,
Oh yeah, for sure.
and there will be differences in approach.
Yep. So yeah, I think it's public knowledge. I should know that.
I'll
But
find out.
yeah. So Cecilia will figure out where to actually find that on the town website, or make sure it's up there somewhere when it needs to be, if it's not already. So that the goal is to hopefully choose one of those candidates, one of those applicants, so that the town council can vote either at their last meeting in September, or barring something we haven't thought about yet, maybe the first meeting in October, which I believe is October 5th, or it's the beginning of October. So we've got those two options, and we're trying to move it as quickly as we can. Any other questions or thoughts on the comp plan? Yep.
Is there a selection committee?
That's what the interview process will be, the selection committee. Yeah.
So the selection committee,
Yes, we're creating one. So
Well,
that's
I mean,
yeah.
that selection, that includes Carolyn, it includes you, right, Cecilia?
I'm not sure if I'll be included, but I was told that it would be perhaps 2 members of town council, 2 members of planning
Well, I think
board.
that should be established, who's going to be.
So it's two members of the council, I believe. Last night at the meeting, Councilors Egan and Chip Lawrence, Councilor Lawrence, both raised their hands. So I'm assuming it's going to be the 2 of them, and then Caroline, obviously. I think Cecilia. I think you will be on there, and I think
so.
there will be 2 members of this board and 2 members of the project review board. I'm hoping to do it, but I'm also happy to, if there are 2 people who are super psyched to do it. And then it is because we're trying to get it done quickly, and because it's a 4-hour commitment in a fairly condensed time frame, we know that that's a lot to ask. So we're trying to schedule it with everybody's schedules in mind.
Yeah,
So.
and with all these different committees going on, it would be great to have a variety of
Yep,
different board
absolutely.
members participating in different ones, so that we don't have all the load is just on 1 or 2, members in different committees.
Yep. They will be during the day next week, which, depending on schedules might be better for some people or worse for others. So yeah, it's
Is
going
there
to
a
be.
process, like a criteria you follow?
Yeah, so Caroline is working on the questions, so they're interview questions. I believe she's reached out to a couple of other towns who have gone through this recently to get some of their questions and some ideas so that she can put together a set of questions and then everybody answers the same questions
Yep.
so that it's a
Yeah.
fair and transparent process.
That makes sense.
So I don't know if there are others who want to do it, but if it's next week, I think I could. I mean, I've like a couple blackout spots, but.
Okay.
most
Well,
things
if
I can
you
rearrange.
send Caroline your blackouts, I think that would be great, and then we can start to build the schedules from there and hope it works out.
I'll choose also
Okay.
next week.
Okay. Yeah. If you send blackouts, yeah.
Right.
I think
Yeah.
that'd be good
Yep.
perspective.
Yeah.
I like it.
Great. And I'm happy to step back from this one. Or step in if for some reason we can't make the schedules work.
Yeah.
And I can, which is, so we'll see.
For those of you in the public that might not know, so the comprehensive plan is the plan that informs all our zoning ordinance and how we make land use decisions. It's usually a very prolonged process, and it will take at least 1 year, but sometimes it might take up to 2 years to complete it. So there'll be plenty of, hopefully we'll have a lot of residents engaged with it, because it is what sets the vision for the future of Freeport.
Yes, yes. So what we're talking about now is choosing a consultant to help us do some of the heavy lifting that would be impossible to do in 2 or 3 hour meetings once a month.
And it's
They play an important role.
Yeah,
They
very
really
important
do.
roles. Yeah, so it's a big decision, as Mitch said. Absolutely right.
Yeah, and it's like a 10-year plan, and all of the zoning decisions that we make on the board really have to abide by that.
Yeah.
So it's bigger than the zoning, really. And we can't mess with what gets built where if it doesn't fit with that. So it really is going to set a lot of direction for the next 10 years regarding growth.
All right. Unless there's other questions on the RFP, the next is an update on the Freeport Downtown Vision Plan Implementation Task Force. I don't have a lot to share. The meeting of this particular group last month was canceled or postponed, depending on how you want to look at it. There was the meeting before that, we talked about an acceleration grant program that the council has put some money toward. The idea is businesses or potential businesses that want to come to town could get some money with few strings or maybe no strings attached to help to promote an idea, get maybe pay for some development costs or something to get their business off the ground, with the idea of hopefully helping people get a leg up as they come into our community. That Brett Richardson presented that to the council last night. I was here until right before he went on. I have not gone back and listened to the rest of the meeting, so I don't know exactly what he said, and I don't know exactly how the particulars of that program have been fleshed out, but I encourage you all, if you're curious, to go and listen to that section of the council meeting. I think it's right at the end of last night's council meeting where that was presented to the council, and so we'll look forward to hearing how that plays out, but it's some exciting stuff, I think, to try to get some more businesses in town and excited about Freeport. So that's the only update I have from the Downtown Vision Plan Implementation Task Force. I guess I will just say that it meets, I think it's the last Thursday or the third Thursday of the month on Zoom. It's always remote. Public participation, as always, is encouraged, so anybody who is available on Thursday evenings for 1 hour, we're pretty good about keeping it to an hour, and it is remote, so you can always, put in earbuds or whatever and listen and contribute if you feel up for it. So next is an update on the Freeport Climate Action Plan, also, which went before the town council last night. Cecilia,
Yeah,
do you want that one?
Yeah, so I just talked to Medi, our sustainability coordinator, because I wasn't at the meeting, but the Freeport Sustainability Advisory Board, or FSAB, they presented recommended targets for emission reductions to town council last night. Town council decided not to vote on it last night, so they will be doing so, I believe, on October 3rd. So if you're interested and would like to participate, you're welcome to go to that meeting. So that's for the emissions.
Was that also at last night's town council meeting?
Yes, that was last night.
So if we watch it, we can see all the good stuff.
Yes, and there was
Yes.
also an extra plug for last night's council meeting. There was also, well, we'll get to one thing a little bit later. And then there was also some discussion about a TIF for a new affordable housing development
nice.
down on Varney Road, which is
Right,
pretty cool.
Varney Road.
Yeah, great meeting to watch if you've got 3.5 hours to spare.
So they're still working on the draft of the climate action plan. The public is always, please, welcome to participate. There's so much information on the website, which you can access through our main website. There's also, you can sign up for email updates, and you can also sign up. There's a whole button where you can post photos or talk about things that concern you about climate resiliency and climate change. Also, Medi, the sustainability coordinator, I was just talking to her, and she said that she's doing a presentation, I believe tomorrow, to the Yarmouth Planning Board. So our sustainability coordinator is also working with Yarmouth at the same time. We have her only part-time, so she's working on both these plans. And in Yarmouth, she's going to be making a presentation to the Planning Board to talk about just very broad aspects of land use decisions and how it affects climate action. And she offered to make an educational presentation for this planning board if you guys are interested in the future when we can fit that into the schedule.
That's going to be the key, yeah, when we can fit it. But yeah. Yeah, it was an interesting presentation last night. Good to finally catch up, for me personally, to catch up on what she and the FSAB have been up to.
So that is underway. So it'll be good timing too, because oftentimes when you have a comprehensive plan, a climate resiliency might be part of that. Okay.
Item number 4 is a report of items reviewed by the Project Review Board.
All right, so this is about 5 months' worth of Project Review Board projects, so it's kind of hard to summarize, and I don't want to bore everyone with a long list, but we had, for instance, signs at Gritty's, we had solar panels, including one of our board members had to come through the Project Review Board to get authorization for that. We had a roof from another planning board member. Those were like the design review ones, minor alterations, a barn, a removal, and in terms of subdivision, we had Harrisseekit Ridge, who had proposed an 80 unit. They asked to extend because they haven't been back yet. And there might be another subdivision proposal for 8 units and 4 lots.
Where?
These will all be pending. I'm not sure where that is. It's called Whitetail. But all this information is on the agendas, which you often get when we send those emails.
Did you say an 80 lot subdivision?
No, 80 units was that Harrisseekit Ridge. They
Okay.
came in, I think, a year and a half
Okay.
ago.
And no news on why they're stalled, they just asked for the
Yeah.
extension.
Yeah, no new news.
Okay.
Then we had a site plan application, LLB in Canaan, for some parking lot reconfigurations. They had indicated that they might do something with their main campus, but that has also been put on hold. So, yeah.
Did they talk about the demolition of the Ella Bean building? Isn't that up where?
My understanding of that, and this is only a tentative understanding, is that it's somewhat in flux. So maybe Ella Bean has a tentative understanding of their own
Okay.
plans for that building right now.
So
that's
it's not
harsh.
necessarily
It's not. Yeah.
slated.
So they may change it. They may
Got it.
remove it. They
Okay.
may. It's not entirely clear at this point to me, unless somebody else knows more, which is entirely
Is there
possible.
is there, I don't know if this is out of order for this meeting, but is there anybody from the Downtown Vision Group that is in touch with LL Bean about the resolution of what they do with their property? Only because, well, I'll just ask the question.
Yeah, I don't know. So Ella Bean.
Anybody tasked with that?
There's nobody tasked with it that I know of. I mean, Ella, yeah, I know.
It could be one of the most crucial decisions in the way Freeport looks forever, and I'm not trying to get in their business.
Yeah.
They're going to want it, but just the very resolution of that corner
Right, they own
could be
huge
resolved.
chunk,
I mean,
yeah.
they could make somebody should at least be talking to them about this, what the town wants.
Yes.
Inconsistent with the Freeport Vision Plan, which was very clear about what would be ideal to do right at that intersection.
Yep.
And I'm worried that they're just going off to do what they want to do, and that's fine. I'm sure everything they want to do is going to make it nicer. But are they going to articulate the corner so that we have a center square? They can. They
Yeah.
could.
They could, yeah, I think the sky's the limit, and I don't know.
But somebody should at least ask. I mean, it's their decision.
I think those
but-
conversations are ongoing. I know I've been getting sort of not official updates, but like talking to people who have been watching the plans.
Well, but early is when it's better to talk to them about what you want. The sooner, somebody should articulate the town's interest.
What is the town's interest, though? That's the question.
Well,
Yeah.
in the Freeport, I mean, that of course is, that, I would take it from the vision plan, which says anything that can be done to widen the sidewalk right across the street from Bow Street would be a huge help. That's really it. So if they could push the stairs back just a little bit, it would make a big difference.
I think it's a great question.
the point. It's all I think people would want.
I think it would be great to see where they are in that planning process and see if somebody from Bean is willing to put out something that says, hey, this is
I
what
think
we're
it
working
comes
on.
from the vision people, not from us.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, I mean,
yeah,
that's who should take the lead.
totally. Yeah, no, I don't think it's not a planning board project to,
Right,
to
it's
go
a
there.
vision.
Right. It's a yeah.
But if anybody cares about the vision, this is a once in a 70-year event.
right.
Haven't they been to project review already for some of that?
Some of it, but
Yeah.
No, I think all the project review that I've seen has been minor alterations and renovations and the stuff they're doing on the side street. And I did see maybe it was an early conceptual plan that showed them taking down the one building and doing
Yeah,
something.
I saw something like that.
Yeah, and it all seemed
Making the
fine,
park
fine,
bigger.
fine, but
Yeah.
have you thought about making it a foot or two bigger?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it could be that little that would make a difference if somebody talked to them about it. And maybe they'll say no, and that's the way that goes.
Yeah.
But
No, it would
if
be
we
great to
never
get
ask.
an update. It would be great to get an update from them and see.
Well, is there an action plan that can communicate that back to the, can you
Yeah,
take that?
I can take that and ask Caroline and/or Dan or somebody who's chairing the Downtown Vision Task Force.
Yep.
So, yep. All right. The next one is an update on status of current and future planning board projects, potentially a broad item.
All right, so the good thing is that today we're taking care of one of the projects on our list, which is the stormwater amendments that we have to do as required by the state. So we have a list of other projects that have been kind of pending on hold. Some of them will remain pending and on hold for a little bit, such as the EV charging station, EV charging requirements for parking. A commercial District 1 cleanup is also on hold. For next meeting, which is upcoming next Tuesday, we do have an applicant-driven zoning amendment to allow weddings on the nature-based art overlay districts, which are currently not allowed. So that will be next week because it was an applicant-driven application. Sorry, zoning amendment request. We are going to continue to work on LD 2003, following up, having a discussion at our next meeting on Tuesday. I'm hoping to have some draft amendments for you tomorrow and post them online. It has been a little bit of working against the clock to get all of those draft amendments done. Hopefully, after you have discussions, our next meeting and make perhaps some policy decisions, we will come back in October with fingers crossed for a public hearing so that we can get this resolved and to the town council for approval so that we meet our January 1st deadline. There'll be subdivision cleanup. It's kind of pending a little bit of this too because it will all come together. So we will be, after we do LD 2003 amendments, we will also be looking back and potentially, most likely, amending also subdivision and shoreland, at least in terminologies, to make sure everything is flowing horizontally. Yeah, and then in terms of the design review work, that will be, believe was discussed yesterday. I don't know if Sam, if you have any update on that.
Yeah, so we have, as item number 5, a more in-depth update, but for now, I will say that I've been talking to Caroline and trying to help her clear her schedule to the extent that I have any control, which I really don't have it much, but so that she can get out the other RFP for the design review updates. We've set a goal of having something ready by the meeting on the 12th that we can then review, hopefully get anybody who's interested in looking at it on the planning board, can read a draft and offer quick comments. But really, we're trying to get it out by the end of next week, which, I know it's been a really long process, as we will segue to in a moment when we talk about the minutes from the March 1st meeting. But we are getting close and really trying to get it out the door as quickly as we can between now and the end of next week. So that's
Does it describe in any way the design ordinance? I mean, in what way does it describe? I guess if there's a review next week, but I mean, if you're trying to get it out the end of next week, I'm pretty interested in how it's structured in what they're asking for.
The scope of work is, I know what Caroline's been working on. I haven't seen a draft at this point, so I think that's what we're.
Okay, but then I wouldn't try to push it out next week, because I think
we're trying to have something that we
reviewed.
can. We're trying to have something that. So there's a kind of shifting things around here a little bit, but if we go to item number 5, there's been a recommendation by the town council to create what's it called, the Downtown Core Working Group. The goal of this working group is to advance it sort of function as a working group to talk about the design review ordinance and be the committee that oversees that process, and then also takes on, but isn't only limited to that, also takes on some of the other projects and permitting, streamlining, and tweaks to not only zoning, but potentially other ordinances as well to improve the functioning of the downtown and the regulation of the downtown to encourage housing and more business and all the things that we've identified. So that group has 6 months, according to the council's initial purview, or the initial, charter, I guess you could call it, to make those recommendations. And I think that group, the goal is to have that group review next week the scope of work, and then push it out as soon as we can after that. So that group will meet for the first time next Wednesday, and that's kind of the timeline of what we're going for all that. So,
Have those appointments been set?
they, with a couple of exceptions, yes, they have been. Yep.
So was the appointments last night, is that correct?
Yes.
And the meetings?
Also last night, very fun.
Yes. Oh, yes. Fascinating meeting.
Full meeting
yes.
last night.
Yep.
And I believe that,
Good,
I
that's,
also just learned about this, but then the meetings, I think, will be held perhaps every Wednesday?
Every Wednesday,
And-
12:30 to 1:30.
Okay, and they're
in this room, I
open
think.
to the public?
Yes, as always, open to the public.
that group, that downtown core, is 12:30 to 1:30 on Wednesday? I
For
mean,
the
that's all
next-
great news. I think
Yeah.
that's
For the
a
next
great
6
plan, but.
months, right?
I didn't get the
I don't-
further
the meet-
details.
we'll
I
not
need to
meet-
watch that
yeah,
meeting.
We will
too.
not meet. I don't think the group will meet weekly for 6 months.
Yeah.
At least I hope not.
I was gonna say,
I will not be
man,
on it
wow.
for very long if that's what it is.
Right in the middle of the day, too. Holy
Yeah,
cow.
yeah. It happens to work okay for me for the next few weeks. So I think at risk of, well, not risk, it's definite that I will not be able to name everybody on the group, but the goal was to try to keep it small. So there's a pretty good representation from the council, this board, the project review board, but trying to keep like one member of each committee so that we try to keep things as tight as we can. Obviously, there'll be chances for input, but
And you're doing it for this
I'm going to do
board.
it for this
Perfect.
board, which is why I'm trying to shirk other duties,
Yep.
like the
Good,
comp
good,
plan.
good.
So, yep, and Ford Reiche's going to do it for the PRB.
Perfect.
Caroline, obviously, Brett from the housing.
Who from
committee.
PRB?
Ford Reiche, who's the chair of PRB, and Brett representing the housing committee, John Egan representing the council, Dan representing the town council and the downtown vision task force. I mean, I should stop because I'm gonna. It's pretty well laid out.
Okay, good.
So, or it will be pretty
Sounds
well laid
great.
out on the, but it also include a developer, and it'll include somebody I mean, I live in all these overlapping districts for design review considerations, but somebody else, I think the council wanted to see somebody else who also lives in and has some experience with navigating these ordinances. So another member of the public or two. So it should be a good group. I think it's 10 or 12 maybe when all is said and done. So
Yeah.
we'll talk about it maybe again as part of the follow-up discussion, item number 5.
And perhaps before moving on to our next item, I know it's not part of the agenda, but we also have news to share that we are losing one of our planning board members. That also happened at last night's meeting. So I believe that we will be getting a new planning board member. So that was one unfortunate opening with our Anna Child, who will be leaving us. But I really thank you.
Yeah.
We all thank Anna.
Yeah. How much weight do we have to throw around? Yes. Thank you, Anna, for
Thank you,
all of your.
Anna.
You've been on the board for quite a long time at this point. Many years, right? Yeah. I was gonna say.
I'll be coming, I'll participate in the
Yes, we certainly hope so.
Yeah, we
certainly
will
hope
be
so.
missing you.
Thanks for everything you all do for being supportive. I brought my newborn breastfeeding around.
Yes. I remember that. Yes.
I remember that,
I
yeah.
always felt welcome.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. And you got the whole COVID experience on the planning board. So. Yep. Okay. Anybody else have information to exchange as part of item number 1? Item number 2 is a review of the minutes from the March 1st planning board meeting. I don't want to spend a ton of time on this, but just to note that it did seem like in March we were talking about a lot of these, getting these RFPs out the door. I think it, on the positive side, we do have one that's out the door, and we're very nearly to the point where we have the other one. A lot of stuff has come up in between appeals and town managers leaving and
Sure enough.
all
LD
kinds of stuff.
2000.
LD 2003, yeah. So it's not that we have just been sitting on our hands in the meantime, but I think,
Could I make
It was a
one
good
comment
reminder.
about the minutes?
yes, you can.
Sharon does an unbelievable job.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
no, it's like,
true.
and I think if only the RSU 5 minutes looked like this, we might have some transparency. But this is transparent, and so everybody can see what everybody said, and it's just
And it's
really
great to go back
awesome.
through and read and be reminded of, oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Made you do
I
that
remember
5
talking
years
about
ago.
that. Yeah. Yep. There was one typo that
I found a typo.
I got a good kick out of.
Was it the rent?
No,
On page 8, you have big instead of bit.
there was one. Oh man, I don't remember the page number. It's refers to vagrant violations of the design review as opposed to flagrant violations. Which I love the idea of vagrant violations, of like people going around and sort of violating the design review ordinance and then moving on to the next violation. But not worth changing, so because it's great and it captures a certain spirit that I appreciate. So. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes from March 1st as written?
I move we do.
Excellent. All in favor? Great. Oh, yeah. Was anybody not here? Robert is excused. Okay. So passes 5. And Robert is 5 ayes, and Robert is excused. Right. Item number 3 is a public hearing to discuss text amendments to Section 529, Stormwater Management, and Section 602, Site Plan Review of Chapter 21 of the Town of Freeport Zoning Ordinance. There will be a public hearing tonight, and we are very fortunate to have Adam Bliss here to walk us through these proposals and the changes that we, I think, need to make. Welcome, Adam.
Thanks, Sam. I think I know most of you, or seen you in the hallway. My name is Adam Bliss. I share. I don't get to see Sharon very often. She's awesome. It's true. And she loves the attention. Anyway,
Now she's really red.
I proudly serve as your town engineer, and one of my responsibilities is stormwater. And as you may know, the town is regulated by the Maine DEP on what the town discharges within our stormwater. Talking about runoff from municipal properties, roadways, and within an area delineated by the U.S. Census. So they call that the urbanized area. You can think of it essentially as South Freeport, all of South Freeport, Route 1 to the east, to the water, certainly the downtown village. The U.S. Census determines that based on population density. So higher the population would trigger being within that urbanized area. So that's at the federal level. At the state level, starting in 2003, the Maine DEP issued a municipal stormwater permit. And so we've been regulated by that permit for 20 years. Every 5 years, they renew it with new items, and which is the why I'm here tonight. In starting July 1st of 2022, a new permit came out, and one of those items revolves around erosion and sediment control. What that permit effectively does is places responsibility for erosion and sediment control inspections to town staff, namely me and/or the code enforcement officer. And so that's the why. These are mandated changes. I'm hopeful that, after I kind of give you the high points, we can get some consensus on why they make sense. We're also taking, so the packet you have in front of us appears quite thick. We are taking an opportunity to do some cleanup. Mitch, can I get you a packet?
You can,
All right.
please.
Anybody else need a packet?
That's not the 45 pages that I didn't print. Thank you.
So these changes appear in two locations. First, there's zoning ordinance, and then there's subdivision ordinance. We're tackling zoning ordinance first. And I provided a memo on page 1 summarizing the changes. First is we've added language that within the zoning ordinance under section 529 stormwater, that we are adopting the Maine DEP standards by reference. And then secondly, we are adding language to section 602. Those are the site plan submission requirements, and as well as 602F, criteria and standards. We define when an applicant should or must submit an erosion and sediment control plan. At a minimum, the DEP is requiring us to require that plan, the erosion and sediment control plan, for projects that disturb greater than 1 acre of land. So that's the minimum. We've added a lower threshold that says for sites between 5,000 square feet of disturbance and that 1 acre threshold, you can submit, you must submit a plan, but it's at a reduced level, which, any contractor is certainly familiar with those erosion and sediment control methods. We're talking silt sock and erosion control blanket and tracking of sediment onto roadways. So these are standard practices. We're defining them in the ordinance.
Could I just ask a question right there? Is it true that W-2 is required by the state, but W-1 is not? Is that right?
Let me catch up.
It's page 13.
W2 is required, correct?
W1 is is our addition,
Is our addition.
good sense as you say, but not required by the state. Is that
Correct, yep. And Caroline and I spoke about this at length. We wanted to define a standard that would not prohibit development or be a detriment, a barrier, but we wanted to, because we have such sensitive resources with streams and gullies and urban impaired watersheds, we came up with this 5,000 square feet to 43 or 1 acre. And
Can you explain the magic of 5,000?
Yeah, 5,000 square feet, as I recall, is the, we looked at 8,000, which I believe is the minimum lot area for a subdivision, and 5,000, I believe, coincided with zoning, and so we just kept it simple at 5,000.
Adam, can you describe what is a disturbed area? Because I can imagine a couple different ways to define that. Is there a definition of it?
There is, yep.
Okay.
That's covered in subdivision, but I might as well define that now. Disturbed area is, I'll start with is not. I have a plot of land. I cut the trees, but I don't pull the stumps. That is not disturbed area. What is disturbed is when I remove or grub the stumps and, basically disturb the soil. What is also not disturbed area is an area that might have already been developed. It might have gravel down, and somebody comes in and they maintain that surface as it existed with the same profile, the same grade. We call that maintenance, which is not disturbance.
What's the time threshold on that?
The time threshold?
Like, so if I decide that I'm gonna do a thing, and I'm, at 4,999 square feet, and I rip it all to shreds, and then I sell the parcel, and somebody comes in a year later and disturbs another, 4,999. I guess I'm just trying to figure out
Yeah.
what the,
I'll say the planning department is very good at tracking that, namely Caroline. I don't know how she memorizes all of that stuff, but she's very good about that. Certainly as that concept relates to impervious lot coverage, she's very good about that. And she just has great historical knowledge of what has been developed and when.
the intent is not to disturb too much at one time without a plan, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And the reality is, the contractors are doing this work anyway, which is why we've added language within W1 for the between 5,000 and 1 acre to say, reference the field guide for contractors manual put out by the Maine DEP. There's two versions, one for engineers for the higher threshold, and then there's the developer-friendly for smaller projects, what we call the erosion and sediment control field guide for contractors.
That was my question is, who can a homeowner prepare that plan adherent to that, practice field guide, or does it have to be a licensed contractor? Who can do the plan?
9 times out of 10, homeowner will hire a contractor, and that contractor is already certified
Okay.
in erosion and sediment control, so it's fluent. But maybe, to your point, they're a weekend warrior.
Mm-hmm.
They're meeting with staff, they're meeting with me, and we educate them to help them move their project along.
Yeah, so they could, if they wanted to, they could,
Yeah.
as long as they, yeah.
And
So Nick, is agricultural exempted from this?
I believe agriculture is exempt, but that appears earlier in the zoning ordinance.
If somebody plows their backfield or whatever and replants,
I believe,
it's soil disturbance, certainly.
I believe so, Andrew, yeah.
Okay.
Good.
This is for site plan too, so I don't think a farmer's coming in
That's
with a
right.
site plan for.
Well, but if he disturbs more than an acre, does he fall
And
under
I
this?
think what I failed to say, but what Cecilia is saying is that activity, the agricultural activity, wouldn't trigger site plan review.
Okay, so this is all tied to site plan review?
Yeah.
Or subdivision review?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
So nobody rototilling their lawn and reseeding their lawn is going to get in trouble.
But if
Asking
you
for a
had
friend, you know.
if you had a gravel parking lot, an acre, and you want, or half an acre, and you wanted to turn it into asphalt, would that trigger it? It was already gravel, it wasn't
It could.
vegetated.
It could.
Assuming you dug it back down and,
Yeah, it could. It depends on what they come forward with an application.
Previously approved and.
Yeah, and there are many scenarios. That's a very plausible scenario. Cecilia is, do they have site plan approval already? There are other scenarios. Does it trigger DEP? Then yes. And just shades of gray in between, so.
As far as the submission requirements, I mean, could you take a site plan and just draw, like, I'm putting my erosion control mix mulch here, and I'm putting my, my fence, my silt fence here, like, just do a hand-drawn and.
We've accepted all
Okay,
kinds.
all right. I just want to make sure we're not adding like a barrier, a cost barrier to, because this is, for once, this is kind of my world, and I've
Yeah.
worked with plenty of guys who probably would balk at anything other than like, well, if I can take the plan and I can, draw on it, and then I can take an iPhone photo of it and I can send it off, like that's easy enough. And they know how to do it, and they're going to do it properly. It's just,
Cost.
it's cost and it's
Yeah.
time, and it's, if there's use of technology or there's use of doing the, I don't know, going to town hall, and
Yeah.
if it's super difficult, I want to make sure we're trying to avoid that to the best of our ability, while also,
Right.
of course.
My
It's a
opinion is,
fine line with
Yeah.
everything, yeah.
Yeah.
And you're the one that would improve these, right?
I review,
Okay,
project review board approves.
got it. So you-
Unless it's staff approval, then it's staff review board.
Okay.
Or well, in this case, it wouldn't go before Caroline because she has a threshold lower than 5,000. But we were sensitive to we don't want to be a barrier to development, whether it be Sam's example or, say, Mitch's example, which is why Caroline had met, we talked about that, and I write in my memo, the threshold is currently, that reduced threshold is current industry practice. Most contractors are already certified. And we also, and lastly, we give them the option to reference the field guide. Because we want things simple when they can be.
So if the applicant walks in town hall, do they have a field guide they can read?
It's right online, yep, and we can point them right to it. Yep. Good questions, by the way.
There's a lot of damage, right, that you can do, even if it is just short of an acre. I mean, any process could, incur a lot of sedimentation that could really affect our water quality. So.
Yeah, I mean, especially with the kind of rains we've seen this summer, you have an open foundation hole near the water, and you could pretty easily dump yards of sand in.
Or into your neighbor's property.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, right.
So.
Well,
it's
impervious
extra
structures,
protection.
that's really makes a difference too. You have gravel drive and you pave that whole thing.
Yeah.
That changes a lot.
Yeah.
There is one last change. This is, it's still erosion control. It appears in F, criteria and standards, page 16. And we're citing the main DEP standard that the project won't cause unreasonable soil erosion or a reduction in the land's capacity to hold water. That's language right out of subdivision, and it's a state standard too, Cecilia, correct?
So I talked about this, I had this talk with Adam because one of the things when we might discuss this in future meetings is taking certain types of what we now consider subdivisions outside of subdivisions, such as a multifamily of 3 units in a single building. And one of the findings the planning board needs to make to be able to take those types of projects out of subdivision would be to find that, for instance, our site plan review is consistent with the state standards for that. And that was one that was, generally addressed in the environmental considerations, but I like that we're addressing it here because it makes it very clear and it's stated.
I have a question on this one. So, best management practices, I don't know how much of a standard that is. Sometimes there's best management practices and there's acceptable management practices. And the best management practices may be a standard that's might be unreasonable, or it might be ideal but not required, or
Adam,
not.
forgive
I
me.
don't understand it. So
Forgive me if I'm
it's-
wrong, but usually, and when it comes to stormwater management and erosion control, best management practices is just mostly the agreed upon,
Yeah.
best it's scientific and it's just
I think that's how
industry
BMPs
standard.
are. Yeah, they're not a state sanctioned thing. You have to adhere to these, they're just recommendations, and this is what tends to work.
And there's a palette of options to choose from. BMP, or best management practice, is industry language. It's not uncommon to kind of wrinkle your forehead to think that one through. One of my colleagues refers to them as a stormwater control measure. That, to me, is more intuitive, but I deal with stormwater all the time. So think of it as a control measure to prevent erosion from leaving the site, getting into the streams, and depositing.
I get it, but I guess my question is it possible that you could, completely understanding the objective here and the public interest here, is it possible that you could make sure that your project was not going to have any deleterious effects on anybody without following those best management practices? Is it possible that there's an alternative management practice that is not, I'm trying to figure out, is the best management practice the only way to be sure? And if it is, then I get it, and I'm done with it.
It is, and there's a lot of flexibility as to what they choose, whether it be silt fence or an erosion control berm or a silt sock, just as one of many tools in the toolbox.
It's a menu of options.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's
So you're saying
basically all the
it's not
ways you could.
prescriptive necessarily, it's
Okay.
yeah,
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
cool.
That covers my kind of walk through zoning. Good questions.
The subdivision changes are the same.
They are essentially the same. We'll walk through them quickly, but they're essentially the same.
Yeah, I don't know how I missed that disturbed area definition
That
right there.
That falls under subdivision.
Yeah. I did read some of this on my phone, so maybe I accidentally scrolled past it, but yeah, I see it's right there. So, I mean, if you have anything else to go over as it relates to the subdivision ordinance, I think even though that's item number 4, and technically we haven't opened and closed and listened to any public comment on this yet, but
Oh, I see, it's two separate hearings.
it's 2 separate hearings, but I do think it makes sense while you're standing at the podium. If there's anything you want to talk about for subdivision, we may as well just go over that now, and then we can open the first public hearing. And
I'm happy to
is that okay?
go through subdivision,
Thanks.
but it's certainly, procedural and at the discretion
Yeah, I was
of.
wondering, can you do that?
Yeah, maybe we can. All
I
right.
don't know.
All right, so we better, rather than taking items out of order at risk of upsetting the public process gods.
We're following BMPs here.
Yeah, so are there any questions for Adam before we open a public hearing? No. Okay. Do I hear a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor? All right, the public hearing is now open. Do we have any members of the public, either here or on Zoom? Anybody on Zoom?
We have one, I was a little concerned before, we didn't have anyone on Zoom, so I texted Tom to make sure the Zoom link was working. We do have one
Thanks,
person
Tom.
We have one person on Zoom.
on Zoom, so if,
So-
Sarah, if you wish to talk, you can raise your hand, otherwise.
Anybody in the room who wishes to comment on this issue? Once, twice? Do I hear a motion to close the public hearing?
You got somebody on Zoom?
Oh, no hands
Yeah,
are
no hands
risen.
going up. Motion to close from Robert, a second. Anyone? From Rosemary, all in favor? All right, so the public hearing is now closed. Any questions, other questions from the board or discussion, or?
I have one.
Yep.
On the conceptual sketch plan here, it says, it's a conceptual sketch plan. This plan shall be prepared by a landscape architect and professional engineer. Do they need that at a conceptual plan? I mean, why is that always?
Where are you?
That's on the subdivision.
Oh,
so
okay,
it's-
I'm ahead of
Oh, yeah.
myself. All right,
Second
never
for that
mind.
one.
You mean
That's
it's
coming
built,
up.
it's built into the pre-existing language?
Yeah,
We'll earmark that.
Oh, it's on subdivision, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I-
I got you.
Yeah.
I was
It's
reading the
coming.
other.
Other questions or discussion on this? Do we have a motion prepared?
Yeah, I have a draft motion, and I'm sorry, I didn't think about them being two separate items.
Yep.
But we can just repeat the motion, one for zoning and one for subdivision.
I don't have that.
Did we pass them around?
Yeah, we did, these.
Yeah.
I don't have it either, but.
Oh, they're over here. They forgot about us down here.
Yeah, sorry.
I tried, the train stopped.
The train stopped.
Nobody's offended. Somebody want to take the glamorous task of reading
I'll
a
read it.
motion?
Proposed motion, moved and second, be it ordered that the Freeport Planning Board recommends to the Freeport Town Council the proposed amendments regarding zoning and subdivision ordinance revisions to comply with the main general permit for stormwater discharges from municipal separate storm sewer systems, MS4S, requirements in reducing the threshold for erosion and sedimentation control requirements to projects greater than 5,000 square feet. The amendments include Section 529 and Section 602 point D and 602F of the Freeport zoning ordinance and proposed amendments to Article.
No. Now you got to stop right there.
Okay,
That go down to the
Period.
last
period.
sentence.
Yeah.
And proposed amendments to Article 3 definitions.
See, what I'm saying
I see.
is, that whole part, then you got to go down to the board.
The board.
The board, okay, so we don't do any of this?
Yeah, because we're going to do it as a separate ordinance.
Oh, okay.
That's the
I see.
subdivision part.
Okay. The board finds that the proposed language has been drafted to protect the health and safety of Freeport residents and is in harmony with the comprehensive plan's vision that Freeport would be responsible steward of the environment by providing incentives to develop land in ways that don't harm the environment and ensuring an adequate supply of potable drinking water.
Certainly in keeping with the comp plan. Do I hear a second?
Second.
From Andrew, all in favor? All right. Moving on. Item number 4 is the subdivision section. Adam, would you like to walk us through that?
Sure.
Thank you.
See my previous notes.
Starting on page 17, we have subdivision changes. First, the first change is on page 19, which defines and clarifies disturbed area. Okay? And then, moving on to page 25, we took this opportunity to update and clean up, if you will, proper citation of stormwater management design manual. Manuals, this is the main DEP stormwater design manual. It changes over time. Its title changes. It's date of acceptance changes. So we took this opportunity to clean up the proper citation. That appears in multiple locations. The first one is under definitions, page 25. That also appears again on page 27. Page 27 is where we start to look at the approval standards within the subdivision ordinance, also known as Article 11. And one of those performance standards is, again, stormwater management design, so we're cleaning up the language. That also appears again on page 29 under design guidelines. And now we get back to what we've already covered, inserting the proper and required erosion control language and appropriate thresholds within the submission requirements of the subdivision ordinance. Page
34.
Yes, thank you. Page 34, at the very end, we've inserted those two thresholds. That falls under minor subdivision submission requirements. It also appears in I don't want to jump around, so I'm going in order of the changes as they appear in your pages. Moving on to Appendix E, we are changing the proper citation for the Stormwater Design Manual, and we have struck out an erosion and sediment control plan published by Cumberland County Soil and Water Conservation District. That is archaic language that we are covering elsewhere within this ordinance.
With the main DEP standard.
Yep.
Their book.
Correct.
Okay.
So we talked about minor subdivision, inserting that language. Now Appendix F is major subdivision. That new language appears on page 38, same language we've already seen. And lastly, we are removing Appendix J. This is titled the Maintenance Agreement for Stormwater Management Systems. This is an agreement that the developer signs, and I sign it as well. It gets recorded and notarized. It's an agreement that says the developer will annually inspect and certify that their stormwater systems are working properly. This has existed for a long time. Per town attorney recommendation, it is being removed from the subdivision ordinance. It will appear as a standalone form or agreement. That's the last change.
But they'll still have to sign this thing.
Correct, yep.
It's just in a different place.
Do we need to call that out somewhere in our
And make sure that it's caught wherever we're
the submission
getting rid of it.
requirements? Make sure it's still incorporated in submission requirements?
Who makes sure it goes where?
That's a good question.
Because I think if we take it out, we should, we
Sure
just
you're-
change, or add 25.
It may already be there, which is partly why I'm,
Yeah.
Where it was removed, yeah.
Caroline, or Cecilia, does that ring a bell?
I don't know.
So
I
it's only
was-
2 pages. If we all skim it, we should probably find it if it's there.
We are
Stuart.
working on subdivision
It's-
cleanup and amendments. So if it's something that we are concerned that is no longer there, we could flag it.
I don't see
To
it.
make sure we
I don't
reference
either.
it.
It's always covered in the conditions of approval. But I apologize, I don't recall where else it appears within the ordinance.
Seems like it would be easy enough to just add
And
item number 25, a signed copy of whatever the new thing is called. you know, it's called the same thing, right? Maintenance agreement for a stormwater management system. I guess we don't know what the reference would be, like if it's,
So it wouldn't fall under F because that's Appendix F, that's preliminary submission requirement.
oh, gotcha, okay.
Appendix E is additional information that may be requested. That doesn't seem appropriate.
So this would be like
It is-
final,
It is a case-by-case basis, but 9 times out of 10, one is signed.
well, if maybe we flag that for Caroline to take a look at before the council approves the final, because this will go to the
okay.
council. But, I mean, it's worth taking a look at, but I also think that, I don't want to make a huge deal out of something that you guys have the expertise
Oh.
in, and so, fair enough.
1116, stormwater management, page 29, under C, design guidelines, or sorry, just above, at the top of the page, subdivisions requiring stormwater management facilities shall enter into a maintenance agreement with the town.
Okay.
But we have to strike out, a sample of this
Right.
agreement is attached.
There you go. Yeah.
So we're covered in that it's a requirement. We just need to add that struck out language, that last sentence.
Back on 29.
And Nick, I have a question on conservation area, secondary. Partway through, it says Village Open Space Map 1 shows location of the gully, streams, wetlands, significance, and a 200-foot buffer along Interstate 295. Where's that, what part of 295? Is that the full length of 295? There's a 200-foot buffer, or?
Where are you, Andy?
I'm on page 18, conservation area, secondary.
Yeah, that's not a proposed amendment, but, yeah,
But every time we see some,
yeah, so we are working on updates to the subdivision ordinance, I think. Conservation area. I have flagged to myself that I also take issue that we reference this, sometimes we reference open space maps that we don't have amended to.
But what part of 295 are we 200-foot buffering on?
Perhaps.
He said, lost enough land to 295. I hate to lose any more.
I have to defer on that one. It wasn't a proposed change. And I'm not
So you
clear
don't
on
know
the
where it is?
origin of that.
But you don't know where this spot starts and stops?
this is 200, yeah, does this start at the road, or does this start at the
And what part of
fence?
town? The whole length
Yeah,
of 295
so-
through town? Or
So this-
probably is,
This
yeah.
sounds like this is a reference, if I'm not mistaken, I'm just reading that one sentence here, but it sounds like it's a reference to the Freeport Village Open Space map too, and then therefore you would look at that map, and that map might show where that is.
It's a race. I have a feeling Cecilia's
But
gonna,
it's a good thing to flag for when we're doing the general subdivision cleanup.
should.
Well, this all pertains to subdivision, but
Yeah. So let's see if we find where's the map for this one. Sorry, it's not my binder.
I don't think I'm gonna
So it
find
might
this in
be-
any reasonable rate of speed.
So it looks like it's this right here. So that's on addendum 2 of the Freeport zoning ordinance. It's that map. Which is on the town's website, but it's not, does not pertain to the proposed,
so it's really just the downtown, where 295 runs through the downtown.
I think,
Is that what you're saying? Mallet Drive,
Can we flag this one for,
Summer
if there's
Street,
questions about it
yeah.
for the next round of?
yes, subdivision,
subdivision.
yes.
Yeah.
So we're flagging the definition of conservation area secondary.
Yep. And specifically the map references. I would think
Yeah.
those
That
maps
one
would need to be
actually
updated
exists.
every once in a while,
They
too. I mean,
definitely need to be
Yeah, there's
updated.
like, I mean, wetlands, like, things change, you know,
Absolutely.
so
So does
it's,
Freeport Village Open Space Map refer to just the village area?
Yes.
Would not
It
include
does here.
Yeah, it's this one
295
here.
for
Do
the
you want
south,
to pass
right?
it along? So we, it's that map.
Right map right there.
And that buffer is right there. but
All right. Does anybody have any other questions for Adam?
Andy had a question regarding concept plan. We weren't proposing to add the erosion control in the concept plan section because that's really a later stage.
You were
type.
or were not?
We're not proposing it to be there. It doesn't exist there. We're not proposing to add it in.
Part of my question was, for the conceptual sketch plan, it used to be that it was a conceptual plan, but it says here, it has to be prepared by a landscape architect or professional engineer.
Right.
Why, for a conceptual plan?
I have to defer to others. That is referenced not to erosion control, but to the concept, the sketch.
Yeah. I just think conceptual should not have to be,
Yeah, perhaps something to flag, but I have to defer to planning.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Like that,
we talked about, not exactly that, but something related to that many years ago, and talking about the requirements that professionals be involved. And I think it's really, and this is just my memory of it, I'm sure it's in Sharon's excellent meeting notes somewhere from years ago, but I think the idea is to make the package that gets reviewed, even if at the conceptual level, clear enough to make sure that the communication is clear enough that there's something to review that a volunteer board can take a look at and make an accurate assessment of. And, I think there is a certain standard that can be tough to meet if you're trying to do it on the fly or do it yourself. I know this from personal experience too, where,
Well, if you don't set a minimum threshold, then, I mean, someone can come in with crayons and.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's-
Chances they won't, but they could.
right. And I think, I think the good counter argument is, well, what if somebody does a great job, without a professional architect, if it's not stamped? I mean, why shouldn't that fly?
Yep.
It's a valid question, but anyway.
I just think for the first round, somebody ought to be able to come in with a halfway decent draft and say, is this going anywhere or not, before he invested a bunch of other stuff.
Yep.
No, I think that's a valid point. I think the question is, how do we set some standard for that? Or maybe there doesn't need to be, but I think it's a discussion for another day.
I just think the word conceptual should be
Yeah.
somewhat different than going out and hiring an engineer and stuff. I mean, if the guy comes in with something messy, you could say, it's got to be clearer than that, go back. But
Right,
there should be
right.
some threshold
Right,
where
there's
you can
the-
start off with a little,
Without incurring all these costs.
that's right, that's
Right.
right.
And I think that's kind of the idea around it, so the concept, Adam, that's, I believe, the second round.
So basically, the gist of this is you're not required to submit your full plan at the conceptual stage. It would be only to get the actual building permit, where you need to have that as part of your submission package.
Not a building permit, at preliminary.
Sorry,
Subdivision
subdivision.
Site plan,
Yeah. Your final approval.
site plan final, or subdivision preliminary.
Yep, okay.
Oh, yeah, so that would.
Any other questions on this one? I think we've got a couple good flags for the next round of subdivision cleanup, which is coming relatively quickly. So we have a couple good things to keep in mind for that discussion, but I do want to keep this one moving. Any other questions? Do I hear a motion to open the public hearing? And a second?
Second?
All in favor? The public hearing is now open. Anyone wish to comment on this, item number 4, proposed amendments to the subdivision ordinance? No one? Great. Motion to close? Anyone? Robert, sorry. And second from Wayne. All in favor? Great. Public hearing is closed. Any other discussion, questions, anything? Or do we have a volunteer to read the motion again with the sort of edit, the other version of the edit that was made the first
You're
time?
right.
I'd volunteer. I don't think I'm allowed to.
Yeah, you're not allowed to. And I'm not either, which is great.
I'll do it.
I don't care, yeah.
Articles, and then you can
Andy's
come
doing it.
back.
Oh, Andy's doing it.
Where are you?
Here. Oh, sorry, it's going to be confusing.
Yeah, a little bit.
You got it, Mitch?
I got it. I know what to do here.
Okay. It's basically
All
the
right.
same motion related to another.
Yeah.
Another section, yeah.
So here's a proposed motion. Be it ordered that the Freeport Planning Board recommends to the Freeport Town Council the proposed amendments regarding zoning and regarding subdivision, really, the other one should say zoning, and this one should say subdivision, regarding subdivision ordinance revisions to comply with the main general permit for stormwater discharges from municipal separate storm sewer systems, MS4s, requirements, and reducing the threshold for erosion and sedimentation control requirements to projects greater than 5,000 square feet. Again, that really should say, and probably in both, disturbances, they cause disturbances greater than 5,000 square feet. It's not projects greater than 5,000 square feet.
That's right, should.
The amendments, the proposed amendments are to Article 3 definitions, Article 11 approval standards, Appendix D, Appendix E, Appendix F, and Appendix J of the Town of Freeport subdivision ordinance. The board finds that the proposed language has been drafted to protect the health and safety of Freeport residents and is in harmony with the comprehensive plan's vision that Freeport would be a responsible steward of the environment by providing incentives to develop land in ways that don't harm the environment and ensure an adequate supply of potable drinking water.
Second? From Andrew, all in favor?
Oh, wait.
Oh.
I sincerely apologize, but does it make sense for a friendly amendment to strike out that one sentence that references the appendix we're removing, the agreement?
Oh, yes, sure. Yep.
I'm not sure,
Appendix
but
Appendix J.
J.
I hate to come back and,
Yep.
We're,
Well, we're kind of
Just
changing
cross
it.
it out.
It's an
well,
amendment.
we are making a correction to Appendix J, right, by removing it.
By removing
You
it.
have to list it because
Yeah.
you're changing it. You're striking
You
it.
still have to list it, right?
That's right. You're striking
Because
it.
being stricken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The changes affect J, and that change is to get rid of it.
just that one sentence, I just want to make
What do you want
sure.
me to say?
I think it's fine.
The proposed
I don't think the
amendments,
lawyers are gonna
there are
anything to
proposed
say about that.
amendments to Appendix J.
I mean, the ordinance, it's filled out right, it's struck from, it's in different color ink and it's struck.
Yeah, that's right.
I think we're good.
I think
I think we're good.
Yep. We had a second from Andrew.
Yep.
All in favor? All right.
Done.
Item number 5, as I find my agenda.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Adam.
you,
Thanks for your hard work on that. Item number 5 is a follow-up discussion regarding the recommendations of the Freeport Housing Task Force. Regarding the recommendations of the Freeport Housing Task Force made at the August 22nd, 2023 Town Council workshop. So that, Mitch, I think it will make sense to have you kind of do some walking us
Well, we've already
through here,
discussed
but-
this quite a bit, but
Yep.
the news since the last meeting was that there was a town council, there was a workshop, a public workshop of all 3 groups, the planning board, the project review board, and the town council,
most
and
of
the
housing-
public.
And the housing committee was mostly there,
Oh,
too.
and the housing committee. So all 4 groups were all there, and there was a lengthy discussion among the 4 groups. Brett Richardson presented on behalf of the housing committee. The core proposal of the housing committee was that the design ordinance be suspended for residential projects in the downtown district until a new design ordinance is built, is written and adopted. I think there was a push and pull on that. There was mixed emotions, and I don't want to characterize, a vote wasn't taken, so I won't say what the sense of the Senate was, but there was certainly some consternation. But some understanding, too, about the intent of removing barriers to construction downtown. And if I got the answer, and I'm going to kick it to you, Sam, because you're on the follow-up now, the conclusion of the group and it was that something should be done rapidly.
I think that's very fair. Yep.
If not what the Housing Committee proposed than something else that does release housing or make it much easier to develop housing with prescriptive standards, and that's why how that's written is important, that are easy for a developer to know that he complies before he even goes to the project review board. I think that was sort of the goal, and then it was kicked to this committee.
Was LD 2003 talked about? Or
No,
or was this-
barely.
Mentioned,
It was
yes.
mentioned as, I mean, the Housing Committee pointed out 5 or 6 different things that the town could and should do to, and LD 2003 is one of them, but it was kind of mentioned as the planning board's almost ahead of us on this. They're doing what needs to be done.
Yep.
They're creating more lenient standards. Public education was one of them. I mean, in the packet is the rest of the.
Yeah.
But the most critical one was, that the downtown vision asks for housing to be built downtown. Right now, it's virtually impossible to get housing built downtown because of the vagaries of the current ordinance.
Right. What I've heard it described as a de facto moratorium on development
It's a
downtown.
de facto moratorium.
Which is kind of where we found ourselves, or at least that's the sense.
So
that
I'm wondering how in
developers-
6 months, now you're going to work for 6 months, with due respect. And I'm
Well,
glad you're
so-
doing it, but if 6 months, then you get a recommendation, and in another 6 months, do something?
So there's a couple. So 6 months is the timeline that this group is allowed to convene, according to the council. There is another timeline in which the weekly meetings. The goal is for the weekly meetings for the next few weeks to produce some actionable items for this council, as
Good.
in the council that will. that is
Before
being-
December.
Yes,
That's
exactly.
right.
Yep. So there's an election November or whatever it is, that first Tuesday, and there are 3 open seats. So that the makeup of the council will change. We don't know how exactly at this point, of course, but the goal is to have some recommendations that this council, because this council has been working on these sorts of issues for quite some time. So there is
Good.
a sense of how the councilors feel about it. There have been some chances for public input. There, of course, will be more, and. So that's the really accelerated timeline, and then there's another sort of the tail end of that, whatever.
But it's a little worth mentioning that, if you come up with a punt position on that design ordinance, then the work on the RFP is a little bit, does that change the RFP?
This is what, yeah, it's a interesting, I think. I talked to Caroline after that public workshop, and she said, "Wait, so now what do we do with the RFP? Like, what are we trying to get at?" And I was like, "Don't worry, just get the RFP out. Like, we need to just let some consultants help us work through. Let a consultant, I should say, select a consultant to help us work through these issues. And we just need to move the ball. That's my sense of getting the RFP out and finding somebody who can help us to work through some of these issues. I think the first of the Housing Task Force's recommendations was intentionally bold, right? I mean, that was the goal, was to get a discussion started. It certainly did. It got this other working group, which I know you can certainly poke fun at another working group.
Yeah,
I get it. But I do think some good has come out of that. And I think one thing that I want to get from this board here is a sense of, okay, so if we're not going to, if there's not the council appetite to suspend the design review ordinance until it's been rewritten, just in the downtown district, what might some changes to that look like, or what might a partial suspension look like, or what if we suspended it but not on Main Street and only for buildings that are less than 30 feet or something. There are a million possibilities, and I think it is worth just spending a couple minutes just to sort of see how the board feels about that recommendation and where we would like to see, how aggressive we'd like to be in promoting housing and what sorts of things. I think somebody said it, I think, at that public workshop, but ultimately, it might have even been you, Andrew, is ultimately we have to, what do we want and what are we willing to give up to get it, right? Because we're not going to get exactly what, nobody's going to come in and build an affordable housing unit that looks, exactly like, I don't know, a 2-story, beautiful, ornate trim, just like it would have been built in 1865, Unfortunately, it's just not going to happen in this building environment.
I think two things. First, you have to have a metric, what's going to come out of this committee. You know, in the end of 6 months, if you don't have anything, then, you know, where are you going to go? You know, if they fail in 6 months, what's first of all, what is failure, what's success? And do we remove the moratorium in 6 months because they couldn't come up with something? I also think the committee has to decide, you know, what does Freeport want? I mean, you know, everybody goes to these meetings and says, oh, we want to look historical, but, you know, you look at old black and white pictures of the 1900s, they had plate glass windows and 3-story buildings on Main Street next to a 1-story grain store.
Right.
You know, and so we all want things to be compatible and not out of place and all these other things, but we're trying to recreate something that was built without zoning, and now we're trying to design zoning to replace that, and it's very difficult.
Yeah.
Without some kind of a, okay, if you don't want 3-story flat roof buildings, just say that.
Right, that's the point.
But, you know, you also got to come up with some kind of thing, and I don't know if form-based code fills that position or not. I'm not really clued in on form-based code, but, you know, it seems to be. And I don't think you're going to get affordable housing because the square footage cost is too much without federal subsidies.
Yep.
I just don't think you're going to get it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think it's impossible to build at $350 to $400 a square foot with the price of money going up.
You need the credits. You
You need the credits and you need the federal money to back it up.
Anybody wants to talk about affordable housing, they should be talking about the credits, the
It's the only way.
financing system, that's fine.
Yeah.
But you don't build for any less.
No.
You don't
no.
make somebody build for
There
less.
was a, there
They
was
go
an,
where the credits are.
Yeah.
They really do.
And they go where it's easy to build.
Yeah.
I mean, and easy doesn't mean it's a shoe-in or it's junk. Easy means the you know, the rules are readable.
predictable, I think is the, yeah.
The applicant should be able to figure out what he has to do to pass the ordinance within a few tweaks, you know?
Yep.
And for these boards, that, you know, for the project review, say, oh, everybody was happy. Well, the guy goes out in the hall and he grits his teeth and he comes back in with his game face so he can get his permit through.
Right.
So you can't tell me they're all happy with what happens at the project review or any other board. They just got to get their project through.
Yeah.
You know, I used to talk to them out in the hall, you know, and then they put their game face back on. Oh, I'd love to change my plan, you know. I'd love to reduce my apartments. I'd like to lose some more money, you know. So,
Well, I don't want to comment. I want to hear other people's comments, but the question is, what do you think we should do to help with the moratorium? I think that's the question you posed.
Basically, I think there's,
What's the planning board's opinion?
is there something else that might be palatable to the board, or, you know, some sort of other alternative to an outright moratorium that might be,
So it was floated that if you took Main Street out of it, maybe if everybody here agreed that that's a good idea, but will allow it to stay on Main Street, that might go through. I don't know. The blanket removal won't go through, but
Yeah.
without Main Street might go through.
See,
If you thought that would be a good idea, but
It's tough that, you know, I get the idea of trying to move this forward as quick as we can, but again, doing all this without even a comp plan, right? These are major decisions, and you're doing it before the comp plan.
I still, you know, we have the downtown vision,
right.
Yeah.
Just
which-
talking about the
Love that.
downtown
and I
area.
think it's, I don't know, at risk of, we
It's
just, we
tough.
have to, yeah, so another approach here, I think, is the incremental approach. You take the weight off of all of these changes by making small changes.
Yep.
And, you know, make them quickly and see, and hope that the sum of them.
How do you make a change to the word compatible?
I don't know. To me, it's subjective, and I don't think it
It's
should be in there.
subjective.
I don't think it should be in
And so
there.
now I mean, yeah, I think it's
The
just,
scale is too high. What's that mean to you? Well, it's something different than it does to me.
Yeah. Yep, you
So,
don't,
so how does the developer even apply that to his project?
right? Right.
So I think we have to get down to some basic rules.
I mean, is a flat roof a problem? Is that, if it said no
Beans is
flat roof?
4-story on one end with a
Right.
flat roof.
Right, so.
You know, I mean, we walk around this, Beans got a 3-story building with a flat roof. It's all right over there, it's just not
very
all right next
flawed-
door.
We have
you
a
know?
flawed ordinance. It affects everything in downtown.
Yep.
And it had good intentions. Nobody's against the intentions. If we remove it altogether, we still have zoning, 40 foot, you know, but I don't, raises risks that I don't know that there's consensus to take.
Right.
So
We're never
what's
going to get 100% consent, there's no such thing as perfect
Well, even
consensus, but-
a majority.
Right, yep.
The problem is, you look at, okay, how many projects are going to come on Main Street? We had one next door, it's the first one in how many years since I've, mostly have torn down. So one project, is going to tear the town apart. I guess it did, but, I mean, I'm just so surprised that, I don't know if it's insecurity or we can't stand change or something like that. I mean, there was 2 old decrepitated houses there when I was a kid, and a gas station across the street. So everything's an improvement. Depends on how you look at it.
It's
Because
tough.
nobody stepped up to buy it. Everybody wants it to be a park, but nobody wants to pay for it.
That's right.
Yep.
Should be a park.
Oh, sure. Where's the money, though? Nobody steps up to pay.
Right. Anybody could buy it.
Uncle Sugar's got to pay,
So it seems like I mean, is there anybody who would like to just see the design review or suspended while we wait for the overhaul? Or, I mean,
I would.
do we? Yeah.
You would.
Yes.
Well, that's what I'm wondering about, because if I'm wondering what Wayne, Rosemary, you think?
To suspend it, I don't think so.
Well, what would be the worst-case scenario if we suspended it? I mean, what are we afraid of?
I think on one hand, there's the actual danger, for lack of a better word, of a project coming in that is objectionable to a large percentage of the town for one reason or another. And then there's the sort of theoretical political considerations of, like swinging the pendulum too far and getting blowback on some of the other, getting people fired up about something that then has political ramifications for that affect other priorities that we have and other goals that we're trying to advance.
Would you need to have a public hearing to remove it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Well, then there's a process.
But it is a question of whether the planning board would do it or whether it's actually possible for the council to just do it. Because I
Well, but
think.
the question is, does the planning board wish to weigh in on this subject
Yes.
as a group?
Yep.
The housing committee did.
Right.
And now they.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's why we're having this discussion, is I think that, I think it's appropriate for the planning board to just mull it over, whatever. I would support a sort of reduced version of it. I think I would keep it off of Main Street and maybe consider, or maybe keep it off of I live on Main Street, maybe keep it off of Main Street from Harrisika to the fire station.
To make sure the double negatives are clear, you mean keep the suspension off of Main Street?
Yeah, sorry. Yep. So retain the design review ordinance for the Main Street core, but consider some tweaked version of, so relaxing guidelines where the stakes are lower, down on Depot Street or, back a block or two off of, Elm Street over there. I don't know, there's probably not land for sale over there anyway, but.
I mean, you start to look, where's somebody going to build in Freeport?
Well, that's part of it,
So,
too, exactly.
and
Yeah. But there's parking lot, projects that
Yeah,
we've heard
yeah.
murmurs of down here, and the design review district is quite large. I mean, it extends into some residential districts where things happen and things
It
move
also-
around,
yeah.
and
It also incorporates other, extends into other districts that have perhaps high, not high density requirements already. So I think if you're interested in expanding housing opportunities, you might want to consider lowering the density requirements of those other districts, because right now, the only one where we lowered it to 0 and therefore we got proposals is VC1. But then you have VC2, you have
V1.
the village
Are
mixed
you
use
talking about
ones.
parking?
No,
density.
Density.
lots per.
Lowering the.
Because we took, in the VC1, the density is 0,
Right.
right? So you can build, obviously it's restricted in other ways, but the density requirement is 0. But we haven't done that, we haven't taken that step, and I forget exactly, I
So we
think.
haven't
lowering
taken a
is the-
holistic overview of all the zoning districts and what we consider a downtown area to see, what those requirements are.
Well,
I think in the V1, it's 5,000 square feet, I think, per,
Those are
Yeah.
the smaller incremental
these
changes
are,
we're talking about. That might,
So 5,000 square feet, that's almost suburban, so you're not going to get that village walkability if you're 5,000 square feet. I don't know which one it is, but I guess another question I have too is, would the suspension be while they work on the design review?
That would be the idea.
Okay.
Yep.
So
Yeah, it'd be a
just
two,
maybe like-
let's say a 2-year suspension, and even when we get a better design ordinance, right now we are sitting on an ordinance that is fatally flawed, and that's part of the urgency to try to get the thing fixed. And we haven't succeeded in moving it forward in 9 months of talking about it. In the meantime, nobody will go forward with anything. Commercial, I mean, I wouldn't.
I wonder if you get a rush of people like, all right, we're gonna
So that's
Remove this
where
for 2
Wayne's
years.
question is the relevant question. What's the fear?
yeah.
And the fear, I mean, we should probably think about that. The fear is mostly materials. It's like somebody tears down a house in one of the adjacent neighborhoods and builds a new house, and they make it out of something that,
Yeah, like one of the hotel
Plastic.
buildings in Portland that's got the huge cementitious panels on the side of it.
right, but I mean, so if that's not something that, if the design ordinance says, no, you have to have certain kind of perforations in the
Or you got to use wood.
street wall, or you have to
Yeah.
use wood, or that could be prescribed if that's what the community wants. But right now, it just is compatible, so that allows the public to say whatever they want,
Yep.
and nobody
That's one of
knows
the
what's
standards.
going on.
There are material guidelines in there as well.
Yeah,
So all of that would go away. Yeah.
Maybe you have to start with dealing with just the direct language of compatible.
what if it was just we removed every place where it says compatible?
Yeah.
What would happen if you just did that?
Yeah.
And said everything else in here is okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's an
Yeah,
interesting.
because what's it have to be compatible with? You know?
Right. I mean, that's
I mean,
No,
with this one, I mean, 4 corners with 4 very different
That's right,
Yeah.
that's right.
deals, and so that's the problem.
right. And to your point, Andrew, it might have been compatible with something that existed here,
100 years ago.
100 years ago.
Yeah, 200 years ago.
and we talk about historic preservation. So it's
So the
yeah.
material guidelines, that seems fine to not mess with until we mess with it. It's just that compatible is that you could drive a truck through that.
Yeah.
And I think, until some of that stuff has changed, I think the ground is salted around here. No developer's going to come. I mean, meaningfully.
Yeah.
Who's going to build?
I mean, that's an interesting suggestion. If you could really go into that in ordinance, I don't know if anybody's gone through it and figured out, is there a way to find all the subjective language? And just say, we're going to take that out.
Just trim it out. Yeah. It's an interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, your group could look at that.
Yeah,
Maybe
that's right.
the-
That's the point. Is that this group with however many 10 or 12 people, somebody probably will get. Maybe it'll be me. Somebody will get that job of
that's-
hey, take a look at this and bring it back to us next week, and we're going to discuss
Yeah.
it again. So that's the idea.
Yep.
So
If you could take out some of that subjective language, you could keep some of the criteria in there that says you want wood siding and some other stuff.
yep,
I mean, it's just, you got to,
right.
know,
Clearer idea of
clearer ideas.
Listen to the developers who are on this board.
Oh, for sure.
Right?
Yeah, yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
they'll have good input.
yep. Yep.
Okay.
But I like the other, some of the other incremental ideas of changing some of the zoning and surrounding areas
Density.
to.
Because I mean, the Village Commercial 1 district is relatively small, so if the
Right.
purpose is to, accomplish the vision of the downtown vision
So
plan.
the question is
we'll have
only
to look
whether
at
that
the
should be
entire-
done in advance of the comp plan, but I strongly support it.
Yeah, I mean, the existing comp plan from 2011, the downtown district is a growth area, and it is specifically like we've referenced it many times over the years.
And yet it
that
isn't
it's to
zoned for
encourage-
growth.
Right, it's to encourage, a variety of housing types at a variety of price points, or something like that, paraphrasing, obviously, but it's right in there, it's been in there for years, so, I mean, if we need to make
Zoning
changes.
never updated to meet those.
Oh, so you're saying that we already, in accordance with the existing comp plan.
We could make
We could
these changes.
upzone those areas.
Absolutely.
Of course.
Yeah, yep, absolutely.
That's a good idea.
So, yeah, I think, all right, I think we have a good sense of how the board feels, and so part of this, obviously, we have meetings coming up, and,
Oh, gee, did they have something to say? I wondered if they were waiting for their chance, but
They just have-
I think obviously part of my role in sitting on that committee will be to update the board at every meeting. So,
Well, thank you for doing that.
I'll look forward to
That's
that.
commitment every
Yeah.
week. That's a lot.
see how long we can make it work. All right. Anyone wishing to address the board on non-agenda items? We have no one on Zoom.
We have no one on Zoom.
One person in the room.
You're just watching. You're not waiting for your turn at the mic.
No, I came here for the last discussion you had about housing. Huge issue that this town has to do.
It sure is.
Yep.
Yep.
Definitely. Well, there'll be plenty of opportunities as we, for those of you looking at this in the future, I guess, the comment was our one attendee is here for the housing discussion, and I'll say it again, just in case there's anybody listening, there are lots of opportunities for public input, and we really, really want it. So check the town website, check the calendar, lots of meetings to go to, and share your thoughts. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
A second?
Second.
All in favor? All right.
See you guys Tuesday.
Yeah.
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
My last meeting.
Pick up your
That's your last
material.
meeting? Then you're out of here too?
I'm moving.
Where are you moving to?
Brunswick.
Oh,
Right close to the line, but not
not close enough.
Far.
So now we're going to have two new